So Mad Eye Pete, did you witness any kind of corruption between the officers and prisoners?
Yeah, there's there's a lot of female and male that had relationships with prisoners. You hear stuff of people bringing it in, and you kind of it's true as well. The things that some of the officers used to say, even one officer said to us when we was working outside, he was like, "Oh, I'll bring you a bottle of wine." Like he goes at Christmas because we was all working outside the front of the prison. So they're just it's a lot.
Do prisoners ever get pregnant from staff?
They have done. I've not witnessed it myself, but just when I got to send the second prison, it had not long happened. An officer, had got a female pregnant in there.
Wow, how does that? What's the consequences of that?
So I do believe he went to jail, but in the first prison where this woman officer was having a relationship with this prisoner, she was on probation, and I think what they'd done, because it's part private, they can't have bad publicity. So they knew about it. They knew that she was bringing stuff in, so they failed her probation rather than actually got her done.
Yeah, they do want to hide these things. They don't want them getting out into the
Yeah.
media. There was quite a XXX video of a female staff member in the men's prison that made international headlines last year, I think it was. Do you know what the outcome of that case ended up? Because I can't remember. Did she
I
end up?
think I think she got 10 months or something, didn't she? If I'm right.
Did she?
I think it's 10
Wow.
months, maybe a year. Obviously, she won't even do that much because she'll come out on tag. So she'll only do like, I don't know, a third of it.
So Frankie's wondering whether, once people are on her list and phone calls can be established, will they be monitored and recorded?
Yeah. So no one can call her. She can only call home, and especially on remand, they all have phones in the cell because obviously sometimes they use it to incriminate. People are stupid. They talk about them doing drugs and stuff inside, and that's how some people have been caught. They've got out of prison and then got another charge afterwards and come back because they've been caught from the recordings. The police have asked for the recordings from the phone.
So how easy is it to get a contraband phone in prison?
It's easy, but you've got to pay money sometimes. Like it really just depends. Like the time, but this is when I sort of left the time. I can't do my hand. So the tiny little ones about that big, they used to go for about £250, and then if you wanted like a iPhone, you're looking at anything from 1,000 upwards.
An iPhone is 1,000 upwards.
Upwards, yeah. Some of them are like 1,500. It's crazy money in there.
What other things are available on the contraband market?
So like tobacco, and then like medication, like prescribed medication, obviously class A's, pretty much anything you want. Spice was a massive one in there, cannabis, even girls were doing like ecstasy in there. Honestly, it's that literally there's a lot like in comparison to sort of my day-to-day life, it's flooded. Like there's so much, obviously such and such takes such and such, but in there it's like every sort of other person.
People are asking what kind of jobs you had over the course of your incarceration and what job options would be available to Julia.
So for the first week she won't work. She'll just be locked up except for association time. And then my first job was in the gym, but you didn't actually work. You just had to go there for like 3 hours and do whatever. If you wanted to sit there and talk or you wanted to train. Then I was a recovery mentor, so I'd help other prisoners that were coming off drugs, and they didn't trust the officers to talk, so they talked to us one to one and run little groups. I've done induction work where you meet and greet the women that come into the prison. You can take them back to their cell at one and then just support them, which I really enjoyed because, when people come in a nervous wreck and you sort of watch them grow and support them, it's nice because when I went in, I never had that. I was a listener, which I was trained by the Samaritans, so that was a voluntary job. So if a prisoner was suicidal at 2 in the morning, me and whoever was on duty that night would get called out and we'd get locked in a cell. That sometimes could be scary because if you go to someone that's got a bit of mental health, you're locked in a room. And if you're done, if the puppers with the keys are the other side of the prison, you could be sat there for 45 minutes waiting. And if they're like a ticking time bomb, you're just like, get me out.
So what was your absolute favorite job then?
I think the induction, meeting and greeting the women, like the recovery mentor was good, but that was just different. It was just going and checking on the women, you know. So one girl, she was like 18, but she was shaking. She was so petrified, but it's just being able to just go, because I got a passport. It's actually sat over there. I used to walk around with a passport. So you was allowed to go anywhere in the prison. I could go on any landing with this. So you could just go and support them the next day, go and check up on them and help them, you know, get them to do all the things they needed to do, how to add people on and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's good karma. Lulu, I hope she has emotional and legal support. Well, she's definitely got legal support, and they named a lawyer in the press today. A good defense lawyer may get her the answer she needs if the McCanns don't manage to sway things. All right, so Mr. Balding is wondering, what was the worst improvised weapon you witnessed inside?
Do you know what? I didn't. I can honestly say I didn't see anybody. I mean, again, I've heard in other female establishments they'd make like little tools and stuff with razor blades, but I don't think I ever saw one.
And who were the highest profile prisoners you ever housed with?
Joanne Dennehy. There was Sharon Carr. I think she was one of the UK's. So Joanne Dennehy was a serial unaliver. Sharon Carr was one of the youngest people to take someone's life at the time, I think. Who else was in there? The girl that Phil Potts, but obviously I know her as Lulu. She was my neighbour, the one that all the kids died in the fire, and they tried to do like an insurance job, and then it ended up killing the 6 kids.
Oh,
And
that's
then
terrible.
yeah, and just somewhat like some girls that have been on the news for unaliving their children or saying their partner had done it and stuff.
You want to know what happens with pregnant women in prison after the baby is born?
So it depends on the circumstances. So there was one girl that actually gave birth. I was upstairs, she was downstairs, and we just heard her screaming. And then, like at it was like 12:30 in the morning. You just heard this baby start crying, and it was one of the most insane things in the world. So she actually gave birth in her cell. And the ambulance turned up just after the baby had obviously been born. They took her to hospital, sadly, because she had no family on the outside and she wasn't entitled to go onto the mother and baby unit. Her child went straight into care. She came back to the prison the next day and was told to clean her own blood up off the floor because it was her blood. And then, but if you're like a really respected prisoner, they'll put you on a mother and baby unit, but not all prisons have that again anyway. And then if you're lucky to make it to a hospital, you'll have your baby in hospital. And then if everything's okay, you'll come back to the prison the next day. And you're allowed to keep them 18 months, I think it is, because they say any time after that, the baby can form like memory and stuff. And, you know, they have to go out to a family member if you haven't finished your sentence by then.
Wow, that is horrific. So, because I had female co-defendants, I know what was going on the women's side as well. So, one woman was pregnant. She had a miscarriage while she was sat on the toilet, and she collapsed on the floor. The guards come in, revived her with smelling salts, ordered her to fish the dead baby out the toilet, and didn't give her any medical treatment whatsoever. Yeah, and in
That's insane.
when they were giving birth, the women were actually chained down while they were giving birth in Arizona. It's really extreme.
I think that's the same in the UK. I do believe that you are handcuffed to the bed, like, but you know, I mean, not that it makes it okay, but it's not like you're cuffed there to there. It's like, you know, the longer chain sort of thing. But yeah, I can't imagine it's very nice.
Kiers is saying, "Well done to you, Fran, for turning your life around to be positive." Oh, here's an interesting one then from Jennifer. What about faith in prison? Are there services you can go to, different denominations?
Yeah, they do everything. They like literally from being Muslim, Christian, Sikh, Buddhism. Is that right? They do everything in there. So she can go to whatever like religion she is. She can go to the was about to say ceremonies then. But
All right, so Catherine's wondering whether has Fran written a book yet. She might want to. My ex-husband's uncle was governor of 5 prisons, and he and I did CAB training together. He helped prisoners to be CAB advisors. They were great. Yeah, so educational opportunities for Julia, Fran, what would they be like?
yeah, I mean, it really depends. So as soon as you go into prison anyway, you have to do English and maths. So unless she passes like level 1 in each one, that will be her job. So she'll have to do that until she passes them levels. And then, I mean, she's not going to be in there that long, so there's not really a lot in prison, if I'm honest.
Well, that's a shame, isn't it? You think they would want to give them skills so that they can reintegrate when they get out?
Yeah, so it's just like sort of not even IT, but it's like computer skills. But in Bronzefield, the certificate they give you is just a name they bought. It's not even a real thing. But when you go to like government prison, then it is City and Guilds qualifications. There are some courses she can do, but there's not going to be a lot, I don't think, because sometimes you've got to wait to get on the course. And then if the course is 6 months and she's been released in 4 months, they won't put her on there.
And it was Kate Middleton in prison who inspired you. What the hell was Kate Middleton doing in prison in the first place?
So I done a course, it's called the Wrapped course, and Send is the only female prison that does it. Now, the Royal Kensington, they fund that. So without the funding every 4 years, that course can no longer carry on. But it's I'm not joking, it was one of the best things that I'd ever done. It changed my whole life. It's, if you've ever heard of like AA, they do the 12 steps. So in there you do the first 5 steps. So they have proper like therapists and stuff in there, and you're assigned to a counselor, and it's really deep stuff. But so like I said, so if you the counsellors used to say if you did this on the outside, it'd cost £1,000 a week. So they get the funding for that, and then she'd actually been in, I think, 4 years prior to that. So she just comes in and she speaks to the prisoners that have left but had done the course, that had left prison and were doing well, and then she like spoke to some of us that had been on the course.
People are asking if she would have internet access in prison. Is that
No,
available?
it's not a thing. Not unless someone's got a phone, which they shouldn't have, and they let her use it.
Because she would be prohibited from any kind of devices that would enable her to contact the McCanns, I imagine.
And the thing is, though, right, is when I first went in there, within 2 days, this girl showed me that she had a phone. And I didn't even know who Joanne Dennehy was. She was like, you've got to watch this documentary. She's in this prison. I was like, I never even heard of her. So if someone in there wants to help her, they will approach her straight away with a phone and go, listen, you do what you need to do.
Is there a chance that someone might set her up to get some kind of kudos or, some kind of deal? Prison, jailhouse snitches, that kind of thing?
Yeah, but there's not, I mean, she's not going to have a mobile phone, so there's nothing really to snitch on her. I think the only thing that might possibly happen is someone might try and sell a story.
Oh, that's true, yeah. So say someone intended to sell her story, how would they approach Julia? Would they just pally up to her and...
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that's like what, that's why a lot of people, not everybody, but quite a few people will go to her because of how big she is, and they'll want to get all the gossip and information.
Did you ever see anyone? I mean, you mentioned Dennehy, who's a high-profile serial killer. Did you ever see anyone kind of like get friendly with someone and then sell the story?
No, I didn't personally firsthand, but there was a prison officer that actually sold their story. It had got into the paper by the next day of something that happened with her and her partner in there. So even the officers, that's how corrupt they are, anything for a bit of money.
I can imagine.